cursed by the Vampire King. Moonlight draped the turrets of Blackthorn Keep in a pallid glow, turning its stone walls the color of old bones. In the tallest spire, Vaelric stood before an arched window, hands clasped behind his back, watching clouds crawl across the face of the moon. Centuries of night had hardened him into a creature of perfect stillness, yet tonight his composure frayed at the edges. Memory, usually locked in iron vaults, spilled through the cracks. He saw her again as she had been the night he cursed her, eyes wide with disbelief, lips trembling between a plea and a curse of her own. Illyra. The name moved through his mind like forbidden incense, sweet, heavy, intoxicating. And he tasted both treachery and longing. He had believed she'd chosen a mortal over him, believed she had laughed at his devotion, believed her worthy only of eternal suffering. So he'd pressed his blood to her tongue and stolen her humanity with deliberate cruelty, then abandoned her to the merciless newborn hunger. A rustle of wings broke the silence. A raven alighted on the sill, dropping a scrap of parchment sealed in crimson wax. Vaelric opened it with a fingernail that gleamed like obsidian. The message was brief, written in the cipher used only by his oldest spies. A child seen in the ashen glen. Pale of skin, midnight eyes rimmed in silver, fangs when startled. Mother matching the lost one you once claimed. His heart, cold as the stones beneath his feet, jolted back to a living rhythm. It was impossible. Every elder decreed that vampiric seed could quicken no womb, that death could not beget life. But the spy's words, midnight eyes rimmed in silver, were unmistakable. That metallic ring was the mark of Vaelric's bloodline, a trait shared by no other clan. If this was true, Illyra had carried his line in secret, defying the natural laws etched into vampire flesh since the first darkness. He read the note again, slower, feeling something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. Not of rivals or hunters or the sun, but of the weight of his own sins returning to judge him. He folded the parchment, tucked it into his coat, and swept from the chamber without a sound. In the courtyard he summoned his oldest lieutenant, Corvin, thin as a rapier, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Prepare a horse," Vaelric said. Corvin's gaze flicked to the paling horizon. "My lord, dawn approaches." "I will outride dawn." Corvin bowed. "Destination?" "Ashen Glen." The words tasted like penance. Snow whispered beneath the stallion's hooves as they fled the keep. Vaelric rode with no escort, his mantle snapping behind him like a torn banner. Forests blurred past, black trunks, hoary limbs, frosted underbrush shimmering like shards of a frozen sea. He ignored the biting wind, letting it scour his cheeks raw. Pain kept thoughts from unraveling into unbearable remorse. He tried to tell himself the spy was mistaken. Perhaps some fledgling's bastard had inherited a trick of the eye. Perhaps Illyra was dust on the wind. But the more he tried to reason, the harder another voice whispered, "What if it is true? What if she lived? What if your own blood breathes in that child?" He remembered her laugh, bright but brittle, the way she had pressed a shy hand to her throat when he recited verses in the old tongue. He remembered the taste of her tears the night he dragged her into darkness, remembered her scream as fangs raked her shoulder. Rage had blinded him, but beneath the rage had been agony. He had loved her. He had loved her beyond salvation, and in the moment of his greatest fear he had destroyed her rather than lose her. By the time night reclaimed the sky, he had crossed 3 provinces. The trail narrowed to a twisting path through stands of ancient, skeletal oaks, their branches interlaced overhead, forming a cathedral of shadows. Animals fell silent as he passed. Even the wind seemed to shy away from him. A solitary cottage emerged between leaning stone walls overwhelmed by ivy. Candlelight glowed behind warped window panes. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney. The place was humble, almost fragile, but he felt its significance in the marrow of his bones. His stallion snorted and tossed its head, sensing the tension thrumming through its rider. Vaelric dismounted. Snow crunched under his boots as he approached. With each step, he fought the urge to flee, not out of cowardice, but because some part of him feared the absolution she might refuse to grant. He paused at the crooked door, hearing 2 heartbeats within. One slow and measured, the other quick, light, like tiny wings. He laid a hand on the wood. It was warm. Elira's scent drifted through the cracks. Wildflowers crushed beneath rain, silver night air, the faintest trace of iron. It struck him so profoundly that his knees weakened. She was alive, and she was near enough to touch. But would she want his touch? He clenched his jaw. Now was not the time for softness. He lifted his fist to knock, but the door swung inward before his knuckles met the wood. Elira stood framed by candlelight, hair cascading in ink-dark waves over a simple linen dress. Her eyes flared crimson at the sight of him, fangs glinting. Yet beneath the instinctive aggression was something else, an ache, a silent question. He saw it before she masked it behind a flash of hatred. "Come to finish your cruelty?" Her voice was low, scraped raw by years of solitude. He stared, unable to marshal a reply. She was thinner, paler, delicate as moonlight, yet within her shone resilience. Scars bridged her collarbone where chains must have rubbed. He regretted every link of them. "Where is the child?" he managed. Her lips quirked, sad and defiant. "Safe from monsters." His eyes flicked behind her. Shadows moved in the small hearth-lit room, shelves lined with dried herbs, a cradle half hidden beneath wool blankets. His heart stuttered. "Elira," he whispered. And the sound was both plea and apology. "Don't speak my name as though it still belongs on your tongue." She stepped back, motioning him inside with a slight tilt of her chin, an invitation laced with steel. "If you wake him, I will spill your cursed blood before he can cry." He entered. The air smelled of pine smoke and lavender. A single candle flickered on a rough-hewn table, throwing long scars of light across the walls. Elira closed the door, but kept distance between them, palms open, ready for sorcery or claws. Vaelric's gaze drifted to the cradle. The blankets heaved with small breaths. He reached for it, drawn as if by gravity. Elira barred his way. "You will not touch him. I must see." "You lost the right to must anything, Vaelric." Her voice cracked on his name. He felt the fracture in his ribs as though her pain had returned home to roost inside his chest. He tried another tactic. "Rumors swirl. If they reach other courts, hunters will descend. I am the only shield between him and the world that fears what it cannot command." She laughed softly, bitter as wormwood. "Shield? You were the blade that cut me from life." I was deceived. "By whom?" "Your pride?" She shook her head. "Nothing deceived you but your own arrogance." He absorbed her condemnation, each word like a lash. "Let me explain." "Explain what? That you condemned me, then could not bear the sight of what you'd made?" She drew a shaky breath. "You think I died. I nearly did. The hunger burned so hot I clawed my throat until blood flowed. But I endured. For him." Her gaze flicked toward the cradle, expression softening. Vaelric saw the shift and pressed advantage, stepping closer. She held her ground but trembled. "What is his name?" he asked. A muscle twitched in her jaw. "Ashriel." The name rippled through him, stirring something ancient. "May I look upon him?" Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked them away. One glance. "If he wakes, I swear I will carve my vengeance with his first cry." He nodded, accepting her decree as law. She moved to the cradle, lifting a corner of the blanket. Warm lamplight kissed the child's features. Round cheeks tinted rose. Dark lashes like strokes of ink against pale skin. When his eyelids fluttered, Vaelric saw twin rings of liquid silver encircling midnight irises, the mark of his bloodline. Irrefutable, undeniable. A gasp escaped him, soft and reverent. Beautiful, he murmured. Elira covered the child again. He is not yours. The denial stung more than any blade. He carries my eyes. He carries what fate chose. You forfeited fatherhood when you cursed me. A tremor rocked him. Guilt poured through ancient veins, hot as forged iron. He reached for words, found only ashes. Outside, a lone wolf howled, long and mournful. The sound threaded through the cottage, carrying foreboding. Elira stiffened. I know that howl, she whispered. Vaelric listened. More howls joined, distant but closing. Not wolves. Vampires imitating wolves, the cry of the Crimson Hunt, an assassin cult loyal to the Council of Elder Lords. How did they find you, he asked. Perhaps the same way you did. Steel flooded his limbs. He stepped toward her. We must leave. Her gaze hardened. I will not flee with you. She shifted her stance, claws sliding from fingertips. We have no time to quarrel, he said. They smell the child. They will rip him apart to prevent prophecy. Elira's voice dropped. I swear, Vaelric, if he is harmed. He will not be, Vaelric interrupted, surprising himself with the steadiness of his vow. I will give my immortal heart before they touch him. She studied him, weighing centuries of betrayal against the singular light of his promise. The howls came again, nearer now, echoing like death knells through the tree line. Elira bent and lifted the sleeping child, cradling him against her chest. She looked small, barely more than a shadow with wings of hair spilling over the infant. Yet her eyes blazed with a power that stilled him. Show me, she said, and show you what? Show me the man who would bleed for us. For the first time in lifetimes, Vaelric inclined his head, not as a lord, but as a penitent. Follow me. He darted to the door, senses flaring. Footsteps crunched in the snow beyond, swift and numerous. He could taste the copper tang of unsheathed fangs. They had minutes, perhaps seconds. Vaelric flicked his wrist and shadows coiled around his fingers, thickening into a blade of living night. Elira's eyes widened. She had not known he could forge weapons from darkness itself. It was a right reserved for old blood. He thrust the weapon toward her. Take it. She hesitated, then wrapped slender fingers around the ebony hilt. The blade pulsed, answering her pulse. A jolt of power cracked the air. Snow exploded against the door. Wood splintered inward. Figures lunged through the opening. 3, 4, 6, eyes burning like coals, teeth bared. Vaelric moved in silence, a winged shadow among lesser shadows. His claws found throats, his heel shattered ribs. Elira pivoted behind him, child pressed to her chest, slicing with the night blade whenever an attacker slipped past Vaelric's guard. Sparks sprayed each time steel met darkness. A hunter lunged for her, dagger raised. She twisted, cloak swirling, and drove Vaelric's shadow sword through his heart. The hunter disintegrated into ash before his knees hit the floor. Elira stared at the blade in awe, then at Vaelric. He met her amazed gaze. You wield it like it was made for you. Perhaps it was, she whispered. Another wave slammed through the doorway. Vaelric snarled, bearing fangs that dripped silver venom. He leapt, catching 2 assassins by the skulls, smashing them together. Bone cracked, blood burst. He spun, cloak unfurling, and drove both bodies into the fireplace. Flames inhaled them. But more came. Always more. And behind them, he sensed a darker presence. The hand of Crimson Hunt, a warlock able to annul lesser vampiric gifts. If that creature stepped inside, Vaelric's shadow forging would vanish like mist. He grabbed Elira's arm. Out the back. She clutched the sleeping child more tightly. They sprinted through the cottage, bursting into an herb garden lit by cold starlight. Wind slashed their faces. Trees rustled with the weight of predators. Elira's breath smoked in the air. They're circling. I know. Vaelric scanned the forest, mind racing. Elira glanced down at Ashriel. He slept on, oblivious. A tear slipped down her cheek. "If I die tonight." "You will not," Vaelric growled. Lightning blue sigils flickered among the pines, the warlock weaving his annulment. Vaelric felt his shadow magic sputter. Desperation flooded him. "Run north," he told Elira. "There's an old stone chapel a mile away, sanctified before the schism. They cannot cross its threshold. And you?" "I will hold them." "No." She seized his cloak, eyes flashing. "I will not lose you again." His chest tightened. She had said again. She had not yet forgiven him, but some fragile hope threaded the word. "If they kill me," he said, "save our son, that is redemption enough." Elira stared, torn. Screams erupted in the cottage. The assassins had found the wrong end of a collapsing ceiling. Fire spread through the wooden beams. Sparks wheeled up into the night. "Go," he urged. At last she nodded, turning toward the tree line. The night blade pulsed in her fist, casting swirling shadows that shielded the child. Vaelric watched her vanish between snow-laden trunks, heart aching with every step that took her farther away. Then he faced the warlock stepping from the blaze, a cloaked figure whose eyes were pits of guttering embers. "Vaelric," the warlock hissed, "you traffic with impossible things." Vaelric bared fangs. "I traffic with destiny." The warlock raised his staff, blood-red runes crawling, beginning the syllables that would strip Vaelric's gifts. Vaelric inhaled, summoning every thread of shadow inside him. It clawed at his veins, seeking outlet. He dove. Their clash cracked the night like thunder. Vaelric crashed through a wall of smoke and cinders, tackling the warlock before the final syllable left the robed mouth. They tumbled across snow-slick earth, staff and claws locked in vicious contest. The warlock's runes flared, scorching Vaelric's skin where they touched. Shadows writhed along Vaelric's arms, fighting to keep form against the nullifying curse, but each flicker cost him searing agony. "You defend an abomination," the warlock spat, returning Vaelric's blows with crackling bursts of witchfire. "No womb was meant to bear vampire seed." Vaelric's voice was a rasp of fury. "Then I will reshape what was meant." He shoved both thumbs into the warlock's eyes. White fire burst from the sockets, throwing him back. Vaelric hissed, half-blind from the flare, staggering to his feet as more assassins poured from the burning cottage. 8 in all. They surrounded him, blades dripping venom, fangs gleaming. He felt his shadow magic gutter, the warlock's half-spoken annulment seeping through the air like poison. The blade he had forged for Elira still pulsed in the distance, tethered to him. Its fading hum, proof she lived. He held on to that hum as one might cling to a prayer. The circle of assassins tightened. Vaelric threw his cloak aside, exposing broad shoulders latticed with scars older than kingdoms. He raised empty hands, crooking 2 fingers. "Come then." They rushed him. Steel whistled. Snow erupted. He dipped, sidestepped, twisted, moving with a predator's economy. A dagger grazed his cheek. He answered by ripping the wielder's throat free. 2 more slashed in tandem. He ducked, caught their wrists, used their momentum to drive their weapons into each other's chests. Spirits howled as cursed silver met undead hearts. The double body collapsed, freeing an opening for a 4th assassin to plunge a spear into Vaelric's side. He roared, backhanding the attacker so hard the head wrenched sideways with a wet snap. Blood gushed from the wound, steaming where it touched the cold. He tore the spear free and hurled it into a 5th hunter sprinting toward him. The shaft pinned the foe to a tree, quivering like the needle of a compass. The last 3 circled warily. Vaelric wavered, vision dimming at the periphery. The annulment pulsed stronger, hemorrhaging his gifts. He could not kill them all before the warlock rose to finish the curse. Yet if he fell here, Elira would be cornered between forest and chapel with no one left to shield her. A howl cut through the night, higher, fiercer than the false cries of vampires. Elira's voice echoed moments after. "Vaelric." His name carried desperation and command in equal measure. He sensed her sprinting back toward him, blade of night blazing in her grasp. He wanted to scream at her to run north. Stay safe. Guard the child. Instead, he summoned strength from the sound of her, from the heartbeat he felt thrumming through their distant tether. He lunged at the nearest assassin, grappling, driving fangs through chainmail and breastbone. Blood spewed, hot and corrosive on his tongue. He pushed the body into another foe, tangling them. But the last hunter darted past and slashed a poisoned knife across Vaelric's back. Pain ripped down his spine. He fell to one knee. The warlock, staggering upright with charred ruin where eyes once gleamed, raised the staff again. Runes spiraled along its length like living serpents. His voice was ragged, but strong enough to complete the spell. In the name of the Covenant, I strip thee of shadow, of night, of power drawn from first darkness. Something whistled through the air. Elira burst from the tree line in a spray of snow, hurling Vaelric's sword of living gloom. It cleaved the warlock's staff in half, severing runes mid-glow. The curse imploded, rushing back into the caster with a vacuum roar. The warlock's torso caved inward, crushed by his own mirror spell. He collapsed, shriveling to a black husk that crumbled on itself. With the curse broken, shadows surged back into Vaelric's veins like floodwater. He straightened, wounds stitching shut before blades could withdraw. Night coiled around his forearms, solidifying into twin sabers. He decapitated the two remaining assassins in a single spinning arc, bodies puffing to ash. Silence crashed down, broken only by the rising crackle of the burning cottage. Elira skidded to a halt beside him, chest heaving. Ashriel was swaddled against her body, sleeping even through battle. Sapphire sparks still danced along the sword hilt in her free hand. Vaelric reached to steady her. I ordered you north. I refuse your orders, she panted, not while you bleed for my mistakes. His gaze flicked to the babe. Did he stir? Not once. Pride trembled behind her exhaustion. He dreams iron dreams. Vaelric's lip twitched in a near smile. Then he grimaced, clutching his side where the spear wound had reopened beneath torn flesh. Elira's expression shifted to raw concern. You are hurt. It will close. She pressed a palm to the injury. Let me see. When her hand touched his skin, shadow light traveled from his wound into her fingers. The gash knitted instantly, leaving only fresh, unblemished flesh. They both stared, startled by the shared power. Her voice was soft. Our blood is one now. He covered her hand with his. It always was. I was too blind to see. Snowflakes drifted between them, melting on the heat of mingled breath. For a suspended moment, they stared at each other as though the world had narrowed to a single heartbeat. A ragged croak shattered the calm. The warlock's broken corpse twitched, skeletal fingers dragging what remained of him toward the smashed staff. If he reached it, the covenant could be restitched, the annulment renewed. Vaelric's eyes glowed silver. He stepped forward, but Elira stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. Let me, she said, voice low. She advanced on the crawling ruin, every step brimming with purpose. The warlock lifted a claw toward her, whispering unintelligible curses. She raised the nightblade overhead, its darkness brightening into luminous midnight. Her tone, when she spoke, was calm and terrible. Your fear ends here, my family lives. She brought the sword down and the warlock disintegrated under the impact. No ash, no blood, only a hush, like extinguished wind. Elira exhaled, blade dimming. She turned back to Vaelric. More will come. Yes, he said. Not tonight perhaps, but soon. We must reach sanctuary. The chapel? He nodded. The altar is consecrated in blood older than the Elder Council. It will hide the child's aura until we can bargain a new peace. She shifted Ashriel, who murmured and nestled closer. We go, she said, moving to follow the faint path north. Vaelric took up guard at her side, senses taut. Somewhere in the distance, dawn hinted at the horizon. A bruised line of cobalt against black sky. Walking through the hush of snow-laden forest, they spoke in quiet bursts. She broke the first silence. You believed I welcomed another lover. He flinched. I was told you wed a mortal lord willingly. I witnessed the ceremony from afar, or thought I did. My spies reported your eagerness. I was drugged to stand upright, she said, voice brittle. The Lord's men threatened my family should I resist. I tried to send word to you. I tried to escape every night. His jaw clenched. My advisor. Corvin said no note arrived. Shame tasted bitter on his tongue. Perhaps Corvin's loyalty lay elsewhere. He has served centuries. That does not make him incorruptible. She sighed. The night you turned me. He closed his eyes, unable to look at her pain. I saw you on a balcony with the Lord. He kissed you. I broke. He kissed me by force to seal the vows before witnesses. They chained me behind drapes until the moment. Her hand adjusted the blanket at Ashriel's cheek. You thought what you saw proved guilt. I built reasons to justify my rage, and he admitted. It was easier than facing the possibility I might have failed to protect you. Wind hummed through frost-crusted branches overhead. The forest listened. Why did you vanish afterward, she asked. I could not bear my own reflection, he said. Every corner of the keep echoed with your voice, so I buried myself in conquest and pretense. And yet, she murmured, you raced across the realm when rumor reached you of a child. The faintest smile curved his mouth. I have never ceased to love you, Illyra, only ceased to believe myself worthy. She regarded him sideways. Words are wind. Then let deeds speak. They walked on. Illyra stumbled from fatigue. Vaelric caught her elbow, steadying. When she shivered, he draped his fur cloak over her shoulders. Its wolf-head clasp grazed the crook of her neck. She met his eyes with a soft sound that might have been gratitude. At last, stone shapes emerged between trees, a chapel ruin crowned by a broken bell tower. Ivy strangled the walls. Stained glass shards glittered in drifts of moonlit snow. Yet an aura of solemn power lingered, humming low, vibrating in Vaelric's ribs. They ducked beneath a sagging archway. The interior smelled of ancient incense and wet stone. Faded frescoes lined cracked pillars, depicting winged spirits who once guided mortal souls. At the heart of the sanctuary stood an altar carved from single obsidian slab, veined with faint red lines that pulsed like distant embers. Vaelric motioned Illyra forward. Lay him upon the stone. It will mask his presence. She hesitated, eyes shining with maternal instinct. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The stone nurtures life as well as hides it. He will be safer here than in your arms for the moment. With reluctant trust, she set Ashriel onto the altar. The red veins brightened where small limbs touched, wrapping him in gentle warmth. He sighed, curling fists, still sleeping. A hush descended as though the chapel itself held its breath. Vaelric let relief loosen muscles he hadn't realized were locked. Illyra's shoulders slumped. She rubbed her temples, drained. Vaelric led her to a low plinth near a broken window where faint starlight slanted through. She sank, cloak pooling around her. He crouched, meeting her gaze. Rest, I will keep watch. She traced the fur collar with trembling fingers. If I close my eyes, horrors return. I will banish them, he said. Her lashes fluttered. You created them. He looked away, swallowing hard. Yes. Silence stretched thick and fragile. At last Illyra's voice drifted soft. When you bit me, the pain was not the worst part. The worst was believing I meant nothing to you after all we shared. His eyes stung. He took her hand, astonished when she allowed it. I turned you out of love, twisted by fear. My greatest terror was losing you, so I ensured loss. She studied his face, reading truth in every line. You regret? Each breath since. Her fingers closed around his. Then bear the weight with me. He lifted her hand to his lips, brushed knuckles in a kiss lighter than snow. She shivered, not from cold, Outside wolves howled, true wolves this time, greeting the encroaching dawn. Pale light seeped through the window, illuminating motes of dust floating like miniature galaxies around them. Elira's dark hair glowed with violet hues. Vaelric could see the faint pulse at her throat, a rhythm mirroring his own long, still heart. "Elira," he whispered, voice unsteady. He traced a scar at her collarbone where iron had gnawed. "Forgive me. I am still learning who I am in darkness," she said. "Let us relearn together." She lifted her face. Their lips met. Tentative at first, cold brushing cold, warming in shared breath. The kiss deepened, sorrow melting into fierce need. Vaelric cupped her cheeks, tasting salt tears. Her fingers curled into his hair, pulling him closer. The chapel's silence trembled with the rawness of it. She broke away, forehead pressed to his. "Not here, not yet." He nodded, though hunger blazed behind his eyes. Hunger for her trust as much as her touch. They drew apart, fingers still linked. A stir at the altar. Ashriel stretched, tiny mouth opening in a soundless yawn. Silver eyes blinked open. For a moment he stared at the vaulted ceiling fresco of winged figures, enthralled. Then his gaze slid to his mother and father across the room. Elira inhaled, radiant with wonder. Vaelric stood, stepping forward slowly so as not to alarm the boy. He had slain kings without remorse, but the tiny life on the altar unraveled him. He knelt beside the stone, meeting silver-ringed eyes. The child studied him solemnly as if measuring destiny. Vaelric whispered, "I am your father." The boy reached out a small hand. Vaelric's throat tightened painfully. He extended a finger. Ashriel wrapped tiny fingers around it with surprising strength. Elira watched them, emotion flooding features once schooled to caution. Her voice trembled. "He chose to accept you." Vaelric looked to her, tears bright in his inhuman eyes. "Will you?" She stepped nearer, laying a hand atop both theirs. "I am weary of hate." At that moment, a new sound rolled across the forest. A horn, deep and resonant. Vaelric stiffened. Elira's breath caught. "The council," he said grimly. "They send an entire host." "How long?" "Hours at most." Elira squared shoulders. "Then we prepare." Vaelric rose, shadows already coiling at his call. But they felt different. Stronger, warmer. The threads of darkness wound around Elira and the child too, weaving invisible bonds. He realized the altar amplified not only concealment but connection. Combined blood and love forged a new kind of power, older than curses, older than the council's decrees. He looked at Elira, and she looked back with dawning comprehension. "Our hate gave birth to miracle," she said. "Imagine what our love could summon." Hope flared like dawn fire in his chest. He offered his hand. She took it without hesitation. Together they turned toward the ruined doorway, facing the oncoming host. The horn's echo had scarcely died when armored shapes emerged between snow-laden trunks. Torches flickered in gauntleted hands, scattering embers over ground turned glassy by frost. At their head rode Corvin, silver helm masking all but the thin slash of his mouth. Behind him marched a score of elder knights, glyphs burning along their breastplates, eyes glimmering the crimson hue of sanctioned wrath. Elira shifted Ashriel to her left arm, baring her right to wield the night blade. Vaelric stepped forward, cloak snapping like a raven's wing. He let his voice carry, deep and unflinching. "Stand back, Corvin, no further blood tonight." Corvin reined his stallion, studying the ruined chapel with disdain that bordered on pity. "I served you unfailingly until love softened your edge. Now you endanger us all for a blasphemy." Vaelric's jaw flexed. "The blasphemy breathes because fate wills it." Corvin's lips curled. "Fate? I prefer law." He lifted a hand. Archers drew black-fletched arrows tipped with liquid silver. "Relinquish the abomination. The council will spare your life, perhaps even the woman's." Elira laughed low and cold. "Spare? You mean imprison, starve, dissect?" Corvin's gaze flicked to her. Your tongue remains sharp, Lady Elira. Pity your loyalty is not. I owe no loyalty to traitors, she answered. Corvin inclined his head. Then die for him as you once lived for him. Arrows hissed. Vaelric swept an arm. Darkness thickened into a wall, arrows embedding with metallic thuds. The moment they struck, the shadow rippled outward, curling around each shaft, devouring the silver until nothing remained but ash, drifting to the snow. Corvin's horse sidestepped, nostrils flaring. He stared as the arrows vanished. Impossible. The annulment failed, Vaelric said, letting the word ring. He felt Elira's presence steady beside him, her magic answering his. The air vibrated, alive with the pulse of 3 hearts that beat as one. Ashriel gurgled, eyes widening with quiet wonder. Knights charged, blades high. Vaelric met them mid-stride. His sabers of dusk moved faster than sight, cutting arcs of indigo through the torchlit gloom. Steel screeched, sparks erupted. Soldiers fell, armor cleaved like parchment. Yet, for everyone he felled, another 2 pressed in, chanting hymns of the old covenant. Elira darted past him, cloak slicing the air. She met a swordsman in a flash of pale linen and dark blade. Steel clashed. She pivoted, slipping inside his guard to thrust upward through mail. She withdrew, spinning, parrying a thrust aimed for the child in her arms. Her offhand conjured a ribbon of umbral energy that cracked across the attacker's face, sending him sprawling. Torches flared brighter, forming a ring of fire as archers loosed again. Elira knelt, wrapping herself around the baby. Vaelric hurled himself above her, crossing sabers in an X. Arrows shattered against an invisible dome. Fragments rained harmlessly. Corvin watched, eyes slitting. So the prophecy lives. He dismounted, drew a long glaive etched with runes of withering. Then let prophecy bleed. He advanced with measured steps. Vaelric met him halfway, blades ready. Corvin's voice was almost sorrowful. I loved you as king and brother. Do not force my hand. You forced your own, Vaelric answered. How many whispers did you twist? How many lies did you feed me about Elira's betrayal? Corvin's shoulders lifted once in careless acknowledgement, enough to save the realm from weakness. You served only yourself. Steel screamed as they collided. Glaive met twin sabers in a shower of sparks. Corvin swept low. Vaelric leapt, bringing both blades down in a hammering strike. Corvin caught one, riposted with the shaft, driving the breath from Vaelric's lungs. Vaelric staggered, but channels of shadow coiled around his ribs, knitting cracked bone as quickly as it broke. Corvin's eyes widened. You heal faster. Love is a potent balm, Vaelric said, driving him back. Behind them, Elira cut a path toward the altar. She laid Ashriel upon the stone's warm surface. Veins of red light welcomed him, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Snow swirling through the rafters melted the instant flakes touched that light. She turned just as 3 knights surrounded her. Yield, one demanded. Elira slid into a guard stance. I already have. To hope. Never again to fear. They lunged. She met the first with a downward slash that sundered shield and arm. The second feinted. She sidestepped, carving a crescent that ripped through chain and bone. The third grappled her wrist. She headbutted his helm, dazing him, then shoved the nightblade up under his chin. His body sagged, releasing her. A triumphant roar drew her gaze. Vaelric had snapped one of Corvin's glaive wings, sending shards skittering across stone. Corvin retreated a pace, breathing hard. Think, Corvin, Vaelric called. You stand on the wrong side of dawning history. Corvin spat crimson. There is no dawn for creatures of night. Vaelric pivoted, disarming him with twin slashes. Sabers crossed at Corvin's throat. Knights hesitated, seeing their commander cornered. Corvin's lips trembled. Finish it then, break your own heart. Vaelric's eyes softened, remembering centuries of shared campaigns. But Elira's voice reached him, quiet, yet sure. Mercy cannot mend treachery if the traitor clings to hate. Corvin seized a hidden dagger, lunging for Vaelric's chest. Vaelric moved too late, the blade sinking under his ribs. Pain racked him. Sabers fell. Elira cried out, hurling herself forward. Shadows obeyed her will, coiling into serpents that wrapped Corvin's limbs, wrenching him back. He fought against them, but her power had grown. Cords of dusk cinched until bones cracked. His eyes met hers, filled with stunned horror at the strength he had once deemed weakness. Elira spoke with a steady calm. You severed a bond built on centuries. Now sever the last. Your hold on this realm. The serpents constricted. Bones splintered, armor crunched, and Corvin crumpled to ash that the wind scattered among drifting torch sparks. Elira dropped to her knees beside Vaelric. Blood streamed from the dagger wound. His skin mottled gray. She pressed both palms to the puncture. Look at me. His gaze fluttered, half-lidded. Live for the boy. We live together, she insisted. She summoned the altar's warmth. Red veins brightened beneath her feet, channeling energy through her limbs. It coursed into Vaelric, knitting flesh, restoring breath. He sucked in a shaky gulp of air as color returned to marble skin. Knights watched, weapons wavering. What they saw defied every law they upheld. A female vampire wielding power equal to an elder. A newborn child, glowing with sacred light. Their commander, ash on the wind. Doubt eroded their zeal. Vaelric rose slowly. Elira's arm braced around his waist. He faced the soldiers, voice ringing clear. This child is no curse, he is hope. Kneel and share in the new order. Resist, and fade with the old. Snowflakes drifted, catching torchlight. One by one, swords thudded into slush. Knees bent. The horn that had called them to war now lay mute in the snow. Elira took Vaelric's hand, guiding him back to the altar. Ashriel watched them, silver-ringed eyes bright. As they drew near, the red glow expanded, bathing the chapel in roseate dawn. Frost melted from stained glass fragments, colors sprang to life overhead, scattering jewels of light across marble. Vaelric lifted the child, cradling him in the crook of one arm. Elira's hand rested atop theirs. The warmth between their palms pulsed like a second heartbeat. Vaelric spoke softly to the boy. Your name will be known in song, but more than power, may you find kindness. Elira smiled through tears. And may you teach us to forgive ourselves. They turned toward the kneeling knights. Vaelric addressed them. Carry word to the council. Tell them the prophecy breathes and that its first decree is mercy. Those who accept peace may keep their lands under new guardianship. Those who cling to fear will answer to us. No one argued. Some bowed heads, others crossed fists over hearts in old salute. Vaelric motioned and the knights dispersed, returning through trees silent beneath breaking dawn. When the last torch vanished, hush descended, broken only by the quiet crackle of chapel candles revived by altar light. Elira traced a fingertip along the infant's cheek. I feared the world would tear him from me. Vaelric cupped her face, thumb brushing away a tear. It nearly did. Never again. She leaned into his touch. Their breaths mingled white clouds in chill air. He tilted her chin, searching her eyes. May I love you as you deserve? Show me, she whispered. He kissed her, slow but deep, a vow sealed in warmth. Her lashes fluttered closed, her free hand curved behind his neck, drawing him closer. Shadows enfolded them in gentle spirals, shielding the moment from prying dawn. They parted, foreheads resting together. Ashriel reached tiny fingers, brushing their joined cheeks. The touch completed a circuit of solace. Elira laughed quietly. Even he approves. Vaelric chuckled, a sound unused for centuries. My eternal sovereign. A gleam of sunlight pierced a gap in the rafters, striking the altar. Instead of burning, it danced across Ashriel's skin like liquid gold. Elira and Vaelric watched, awed. No vampire flesh had ever welcomed daylight, yet the child glowed stronger beneath it. The beam branched, touching their hands. Warmth surged, but no pain. Vaelric looked in astonishment at his sun-kissed skin. "His blood shields us," Illyra murmured. "Our redemption," Vaelric agreed. Wordlessly, they stepped together into the widening spill of light. It washed over them, illuminating scars, softening hard edges, painting them in colors long forgotten. Vaelric brushed a strand of hair from Illyra's brow, eyes shining. "Stay," he said simply. "For as long as this light endures," she replied. Ashriel cooed between them, and something like laughter rose from ruined walls. Perhaps the chapel's ancient spirits recognizing prophecy fulfilled. Outside, the first real dawn Vaelric had stood beneath in 800 years broke across the snowbound world. He lifted his face to it, feeling warmth seep into bones that had known only night. Illyra pressed close, heart thrumming against his side. Together, beneath a sky shifting from indigo to rose, they stepped through the chapel arch into a morning that did not burn. Shadows laced their heels like loyal hounds, but sunshine paved their path ahead, bright and boundless. Their story would travel on every vampire wind. That hate had birthed love, that curse had crowned blessing, and that from vengeance rose a bloodbound family strong enough to remake eternity. Vaelric kissed Illyra once more under the newborn sun. Hope tasted sweeter than any wine of their bygone courts. Beside them, Ashriel's laughter, soft, pure, impossibly alive, echoed like the first note of a new symphony. And so the Dark Lord, the Scarred Lady, and the Sunborn Prince walked forward, leaving ashes and night behind, hand in hand, forever bound by blood and love.